Konstantin Kisin, author of the soon-to-be-released book An Immigrant's Love Letter to the West, implores the British government not to ban Russian propaganda channels in the West or impose sanctions against ordinary Russians living here. And Konstantin, it's so great to have you here tonight because, of course, you have such a unique perspective on this entire story. You're Russian-British, but you also have lots of relatives in Ukraine who are living through this hell. Konstantin, can we just start with this idea of censoring the Russian regime? You say no, that's not the best approach.
Good to be back with you, Dan. First of all, I've been watching the last few minutes, and it's good to be back in the home of polite and reasoned debate, as always. I thought Esther was going to blow a gasket there for a second.
You know what it's like on this show.
I'm a fan. So it's good to be back. Look, I think we've got to remember, and I've been one of the most critical people about what's happened with the invasion. As you know, I predicted it was going to happen when most people were claiming it wasn't. So when I say what I say, I'm not saying it because I'm apologizing for what Russia's doing, which I think is awful at all. I just think here in the West, we've got to remember our principles always, and freedom of speech is a big part of that. I think we can let people see what Russia today is putting out and provide the right information alongside it or next to it. People can watch what they want and make up their own mind. That's always been how we do things, and I think that's the right way to do it. As for punishing Russians, I mean, the one thing that doesn't make any sense is most Russians who are in the West are not fans of Vladimir Putin. In fact, most of them are critics of Vladimir Putin. That's why they're in the West, Dan, right? So if you think that sending critics of Vladimir Putin back to Moscow is a way of punishing Vladimir Putin, I mean, that is an idea so stupid only an MP could have thought of it.
No, absolutely understand. Let's take a look at this at a macro level, Konstantin, because you have written some fascinating Twitter threads, which I actually recommend people go and read for themselves because it gives a lot of context to what's going on. But essentially, your argument, and by the way, I was one of the people on this channel saying there's no good trying to appease Putin. And your point is there's nothing we could have done to stop him. You compare Russia to a hungry wolf when it comes to wanting extra territory.
Well, yes, I wouldn't say there was nothing we could have done. I also wouldn't think that there's nothing Ukraine could have done. There are lots of things that could have been done to avoid it, but that's all water under the bridge. We have to deal with the situation as it is now. And first of all, I saw that you were covering the newspapers headlines for tomorrow. As I say, I'm just going to make this proviso again. I'm very critical of what is happening in Ukraine. I think it's awful and completely wrong. But remember, Dan, there is a fog of war going on. There's informational warfare. Many of the things that have come out of Ukraine, whether that's achievements of the Ukrainian military or atrocities, have later turned out to not be entirely what's happened. So I would caution people about believing propaganda from either side. This is what happens in war. People are going to put out a particular narrative that suits them. So let's just be careful about that. But obviously what's happening in Ukraine is awful. And in terms of how we move on from here, it's really all up to the Ukrainians. If they can defend their country long enough, then that, I think, will draw Vladimir Putin to the negotiating table. And this is really the important thing that people need to understand, Dan. The way things have gone down for Vladimir Putin, this is now existential. There is no cozy retirement on the Black Coast for him. There is no being a respected member of the international community anymore. He knows that. And if we put him into a corner, only God knows what could happen. So what we have to do is what they call in military terms a golden bridge. There has to be some negotiation where he feels like he's got a way out. He can save face. That is how we avoid some very, very terrible things happening in the future.
So we've got to negotiate.
Well, it's not so much us, it's the Ukrainians. As I say, the Ukrainians have to show the Russian military that they're not going to give up. They have to defend their country. We in the UK are doing a lot, and other countries are doing finally enough in terms of supporting their military with weaponry, etc. So that is part of it. The sanctions, I don't think the Russians expected to be as harsh or as immediate as they have been. And some of the other repercussions, I don't think they saw coming in this way. So they're going to be on the ropes. And as I say, the most important thing is they don't feel like they've got no way out. There's got to be a negotiated settlement of some kind. It may mean that Russia ends up taking the two so-called breakaway regions, which it already has control of. It may mean that we accept the fact that Crimea is never going to come back. You know, speaking to people in Ukraine, I don't think anyone was particularly keen to get those parts of the country back anyway, because they were quite destabilizing in terms of how the country is configured. So that will be part of it. And on the other hand, we have to make sure that those negotiations result in permanent security guarantees for Ukraine, so that Ukraine doesn't fear that this is going to happen again 2 years from now, when, as you rightly say, Dan, the West has been very, very distracted. We've been focusing on completely the wrong things that you were hinting at. We've been weakening ourselves internally. We've been engaging in all sorts of pointless discord and disagreement over things that don't matter. And that is why Vladimir Putin has taken this opportunity to deal with the situation.